Good Lord.
Looks like we found the party.
Who doesn't like pirates? In popular culture, they have become an icon of fun, but in reality, they were quite violent. So I love One Piece. I like the Pirates of the Caribbean, and I like Uncharted 4 and Uncharted 3, in which pirates are also taking a part. Whereas you don't see this violence that pirates are doing in the gift shop in Disney World or in the Pirates Caribbean. I think Uncharted 4 A Thief's End does a better job at showing that. Now, I will not get too deep into spoilers, but let's just say that the way Henry Avery and other pirates mentioned in the game are is not exactly being kind to each other. So I'm currently reading the book Pirates, Terrorists and States by the professor in intellectual history, Mikkel Torp, in which he claims that pirates and terrorists are similar in more ways than you might think. They are both in opposition to the state, which claims to be the only legitimate power to carry out violence. Or as Max Weber puts it, the state has a monopoly on violence, which pirates and terrorists don't recognize. Pirates and terrorists represent a non-government, private exercise of violence. They do not operate within the boundaries of the state, so they cannot be considered ordinary criminals. Pirates were operating on the sea, and it was hard to get to them during the great times of piracy. And terrorists operate on the internet, and it's hard to just track them down in your own country. So they're similar in that way. Therefore, they've been said to be the moral enemies of civilization, since the states have a hard time controlling them. Now, Torp claims that the most important difference between pirates and terrorists is their purpose in doing violence. Whereas violence is a means of acquiring wealth for pirates, it serves as a means to attain political goals for terrorists. But he doesn't focus on these differences and mainly focus on the similarities. The way we have talked about pirates and terrorists are quite similar. For instance, the first war that the US took part in was to attack pirates in the old world in North Africa who were terrorizing Europe. And they basically talked about these pirates in the same way that Bush might have talked about terrorists. So pirates do have this purpose of gaining wealth, but it might also be political in some sense. They might also be political, and it might be all quite messy, the difference between pirates and terrorists. Now, the way we've talked about pirates and terrorists is quite similar. They're both in opposition to the state, so I really think that's interesting. Now, another spoiler alert, in Uncharted 4, the pirates have made this paradise state, or at least they presented it so, called Libertalia, but that's not really a state because it's so unstable, and they try to have as few rules as possible. It's more like an anarchist state. Now, I think that's a really interesting take on Uncharted 4 pirates, because you might think of these pirates as, or they present themselves as noble and people being in opposition to states that are repressive, but I think they're really just like terrorists in some sense. And you might think they're freedom fighters or whatever, but I think the similarity is really different. It's really interesting, and I just wanted to point that out in this video. So have a nice day, and see you next time.